Scott Robertson gets his first loss as All Blacks coach. The All Blacks leak a record number of points. They haven't won in Wellington since 2018. There is a lot to go over, but I'm not just here to pick the bones. I'm here to offer some solutions and a bit of hopium. Let's break down this very disappointing game from a New Zealand perspective, and as always, separate a little bit of emotion from it and point to some of the key statistics that really paint the picture of where this went wrong for the All Blacks. Let's get to it, guys. Well, I just got back from celebrating my 5-year anniversary. I was off grid in Central Oregon, no electricity, no Wi-Fi. Kind of wish it had stayed that way because I got back this morning, watched the game, and it was a bit of a horror show. Now, not necessarily for the first half. In fact, the All Blacks were leading 20 points to 8 with just a couple of minutes to go. It seemed that they had the game relatively in control, and you got the feeling that if they could apply a scoreboard pressure, they might even break out and really put a beating on the Pumas. The problem was the All Blacks in this game were pinned in their 22 repeatedly, and they just could not come up with the exit plays we needed. On a couple of memorable, for the wrong reasons, occasions, TJ Perenara could not clear the ball. His box kicks were charged down. That was kind of a nice metaphor for this game where Argentina was able to just use brute strength and aggressive line speed to keep us firmly entrenched in our own territory. And then what you had was DMAC putting up a contestable kick that went about 30 meters from our own try line. Severis trying to then bat the ball back, gifted it to an Argentine player who ran in and scored just on the stroke of halftime. And I think that was the beginning of the momentum shift in this game. Normally the All Blacks are the masters at scoring just before and just after halftime. But in this game, it was the Argentina players. And it actually felt kind of like a killer blow to the solar plexus. Even though the game was only halfway up, you just got the feeling that if the All Blacks were not going to be clinical and were going to give away possession like that, they might be heading for a famous loss. And that's what eventuated. It was interesting to note that there wasn't a scrum for the first hour of the game, and that has really been the strongest suit for the All Blacks. So it didn't actually particularly benefit them that this was largely a scrum-free game. Let's look at some silver linings, though. The lineouts were actually very good for most of the game, very reliable. We'll get to the end when it wasn't so reliable. But for the most part, it was a big improvement over what we saw against England earlier this year in the Steinlager series. So the men in black actually did beat the RGs in terms of lineout win percentage, 85% won to 88% won. And you have to say that maybe the most outstanding figure in the forward pack was newcomer Sam Darry. He looked terrific around the park. He was a reliable line-out option over and over again. So just a little bright spot there for the All Blacks that the line-out was functioning very well. And it wasn't as if the All Blacks didn't have plenty of opportunities to attack. Again, if you look at possession here, well, the All Blacks actually shaded Argentina 55% to 45%. Many opportunities to attack. A lack of clinical finishing is what we really saw. I think the All Blacks did try to vary their play as they've been doing all year, and they did employ a kicking game at times, but perhaps the response they got wasn't what was expected. You see, Argentina didn't get drawn into a kicking duel. Argentina counterattacked every time we kicked the ball to them. And here is a really compelling statistic I want to show you, and this is normally one where New Zealand is going to dominate. Post-contact meters. New Zealand, 230 meters. Argentina, 253 meters. So what that tells you is that Argentina actually shaded us with the ball in hand. They were able to break the line and then keep surging downfield and repeatedly get into our half and into our 22. So there was a physicality mismatch at times in the back lines. Just a slight one, but you certainly didn't see the All Blacks busting over the advantage line with a power game. And that's where you might start thinking about having a little bit of a personnel change. Do we persevere with Sevu Reece, who is certainly an elusive and electric winger, but is someone like a Caleb Clark maybe going to offer just a little bit more in terms of those man-on-man collisions? Is he going to be a little bit more physical around the breakdown? Is that something we need? And if we are going to persist with a kicking game, is TJ Perenara the right one to execute it? For me, He didn't look strong out there, and I think that given the fact that he's going overseas at the end of this year, it might be time to look to the future. Yes, there'll be some really steep learning curves, but bringing on Cortez Ratama, ultimately bringing Cam Roigard back into the fold, hell, even giving Noah Hotham some more minutes, this might be what we need to do with the halfback position, because TJ Perinara, with all due respect, isn't the future. He's leaving, and, you know, on the evidence of this game on the weekend, he didn't play his best. He didn't really get us out of tough spots with his kicking game reliably. And, you know, I also think we're perhaps giving up a little bit of running speed and sniping by leaving Cortez Ratama on the bench. So I think you're looking at halfback and wing as potential positions that Razor might switch up. And then you've got to look at the midfield as well. Did Anton Leonard-Brown deliver? He replaced Rico Ioane in the starting team this week. A lot of people thought Billy Proctor might get the chance, but ALB's form was just undeniable. You know, was the Geordie ALB midfield the right one? Perhaps Rico Ioane's speed did look a bit more appealing after seeing what we saw on the weekend. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle for Razor to figure out. Now, I'm going to be very intrigued to see who his midfield combination is for the weekend. Now, I mentioned that the turning point in the game was the Argentina score just before halftime. And essentially, as the game wore on, you just felt the All Blacks were not going to break through that Argentina brick wall. But ultimately, it was a comedy of errors that sealed this loss for us. There were 10 minutes to go, approximately. And, you know, two wild wayward passes, one from Ardi Savia and then one from Damian McKenzie, put us back behind our own bloody try line. And it just was a hole too deep to dig out of at that point. That was obviously a shocking, almost meme-worthy moment. The other one that sticks in the memory banks was when Asafo Amua came on to replace Cody Taylor, who had a fine game overall. Essentially, the All Blacks had an attacking line out somewhere around the halfway mark. There was still time to potentially get out of this hole and win the game. Well, Asafo Amua's throw missed everyone. There was total miscommunication. That was just another example of a meltdown at a critical moment. And those errors are what cost the All Blacks. And we can't hide from the fact that we scored 3 tries and Argentina scored 4. So I think they shocked us with their attacking intent. I think they shocked us with their willingness to counter-attack. And I think overall, they just pulled us into a physical wrestling match. And these are big boys. You know, they played a little bit like South Africa in terms of just that relentless physicality and line speed on defense, but also width to their attack and real physicality in the backline and a willingness to take the ball into the collision zone and then come out with those post-contact meters, leg drive, flailing limbs, pretty good clean out at the ruck. Argentina played super well. So impressed by them. All right, so if we're going to turn this around and not lose our 30-year win streak at Eden Park, what are the 3 key areas we need to focus on? Well, obviously, it's going to be the exit plays. We cannot botch our escape plan from our 22 like we did. The kicks need to be accurate. They need to be deep. We don't need to be trying to win back possession in our own 22 with dinky little kicks, regathers, tapbacks. Not the time to do it. Yes, we need to be bold on attack. We need to take risks. We need to throw that last pass, have the courage to do it, as Razor Robertson has said. But we don't need to be overly cute in terms of exiting our 22. Sometimes we just need to get the hell out of our own red zone and head downfield, head for safer territory. And we did not do that on the weekend. And that invited Argentina to stay in the game, which they ultimately won. And then, of course, it's going to have to come down to the kicking game. It didn't really work for us in the way that we were able to play territory against England. Again, I feel that some of the kick chase wasn't as strong as it could have been. And I do wonder if you need to look at wingers who are perhaps a little bit more primed for that aerial battle, both receiving high ball, but also if you want to do attacking kicks. You know, is Caleb Clark a better option for that than Sevu Reece? A little bit more height, maybe a little bit more aptitude under the high ball. Is that something we want to look at selection-wise? And then speaking of selection, we're going to have to look at the bench because we didn't get the impact there. And look, part of it is just a lack of cattle. I mean, Josh Lord is very underdone. But who else are we going to go to in terms of the locks? You know, he was our next cab off the rank. He'll be better for having a head out. With Ofa Tu'ungafasi, an older player, more experienced player, I feel that he's actually someone you probably want to start rather than have come off the bench. I don't know that he's going to make the impact of a Tamaiti Williams, who's a more raw player, but I think does have that explosive physicality and ability with the ball in hand that might benefit us a bit more coming off the bench. Will Jordan looked really good for half an hour. But look, even Will, he plays like a Marvel superhero, but he's a mere mortal, and he'll be better for that. He's only had one hit out for Tasman, right? He's been injured for months and months, that terrible shoulder injury that he's had. So really didn't ever suit up for the Crusaders. He will be better. He already played well on the weekend, but I think he'll be better on the weekend if he comes off the bench again. And then I think you do have to persist with Wallace Satiti. Yes, he made a wee error out there, but he did seem to bring on some bristling physicality, and I think we've got to just push on with him. So guys, terribly disappointing result, but I believe the All Blacks can turn it around. I believe this can be a valuable learning experience for them. I guess the proof will be in the pudding at Eden Park. But I'll tell you what, it's incredibly exciting. That Eden Park streak really is on the line. So I think they're going to get a huge crowd in Auckland now. Argentina are the real deal. They made the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup. And, on the strength of that performance, they do look like a top 4 team in the world. So congratulations to the South Americans, a thoroughly deserved win. Let's just hope the men in black can turn it around this weekend. And I will be back to break that game down with you. I'll see you guys then. Kia kaha, never stop believing in the All Blacks. We'll learn from this. We'll be back. Stay strong, guys. I'll catch you for the next one real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.